Greetings to our viewers and listeners. I am Dinesh Mundhra, your host, and this is the first episode of the Legit podcast, where we discuss different avenues of law with the best of the experts. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Professor Dr. Purvi Pokhriyal is a distinguished academician and legal professional with more than 25 years of experience, including 15 years as an administrator. Her expertise span a wide spectrum encompassing forensic justice education, AI and law, technology and cyber laws, criminal law, and constitutional law. She has numerous publications in various journals of national and international repute and has also authored several notable books, including Forensic Justice, A Global Perspective. Professor Pokhriyal is a leading legal expert of the country who has extensively engaged in national policy making and training of law enforcement agencies. Notably, she is also the first female president of the Indian Society of Criminology. She currently serves as the Dean of School of Law, Forensic Justice Policy Studies at NFSU Gandhinagar and is also a visiting faculty at HOF University, Germany and a global professor at Tashkent State University of Law. Ma'am, it is an honor to have you with us on the very first episode. Ma'am, so as we begin, the very first question is that for a common citizen or common man, most of the understanding of forensic justice comes from books, movies or TV shows. And such knowledge is often incomplete or incorrect. So as a leading expert in the field of forensic justice, kindly guide us as to what a common man should understand from the term forensic justice.
Thank you, Dinesh, for asking this very basic questions which is required to be understood by everyone. Forensic justice, when we for the first time we coined this word, when we were thinking about setting up the law school under the aegis of NFSU, and then what could be the role of a law school in the Forensic Sciences University. And then, we have come up with this nomenclature of School of Law, Forensic Justice and Policy Studies. And we have chosen this Forensic Justice nomenclature with a very, very careful considerations. When we talk about forensic justice, we are trying to examine every process, every aspects, and every steps that we take towards dispensation of justice, right from crime scene management to crime scene investigation, to collection of the exhibit at the crime scene, to preservation of the exhibit, to loading this exhibit to the FSL laboratories, forensic science laboratories, then to examining, ensuring the proper standard operating procedure which is accepted by the global standards, and then reporting it with the proper reporting format which could be understood by the judicial officers and then presented before the court of law, and giving an appropriate courtroom testimony by the forensic scientist defending that piece of evidence which is being submitted by him into the court of law. Every aspects of dispensation of justice, wherein the justice, we said justice is always based on some kind of an evidence. Justice is always based on some amount of proof, and the degree of proof is something which matters a lot to the entire justice administration system. So even the judging part, when you are considering the piece of evidence, when you are weighing the piece of evidence, when you are come out with the degree of the reliance on the piece of evidence, when you are taking the decision on the reliance of the piece of evidence, at that point in time, the psyche of a human being who are involved, that all the human beings or the professionals who are involved, including the public prosecutors, including the investigating officers, including the forensic scientists, including the judicial officers who is taking a call, who is taking a final decisions, whether all these are behaving with objective framework of the mindset or not. Because at the end of the day, it is said we all are the product of our own histories and experiences, and these histories and experiences, form different kind of biases in our mind. So when we say forensic justice, is not only the forensic evidence, the entire process, including the framework of the mind of everyone involved in this process, whether they are looking at with the scientific temperament, keeping all the biases away. So it is a complete bias-free phenomena which we try to visualize in the concept of forensic justice.
Yes. So, ma'am, we are seeing the emergence of a new facet of justice, like you just explained to us, that is forensic justice. So, how, in your considered opinion, would forensic justice be different from traditional notions of justice?
Very good. So, in a way, in justice delivery system, as I said, we rely on the eyewitness testimony. We rely on different kind of proof, different kind of an evidence. But if you look at specifically, if I talk about the criminal trial and the criminal cases, largely, we follow. We have seen that courtroom testimony in the form of eyewitness testimony plays a very vital role. But then there are a number of studies that has been done in Europe, US and United States, wherein it says that 32% of the eyewitness testimony found to be incorrect, because what we see, because you might have seen someone committing something or involving some activity before 4 years, and then after 5 years or 7 years, when that actual trial is happening in the court of law, when you are trying to connect with your memory, at times the memory may falter. So my point over here is that generally, and as I said, we all human beings who are involved in the justice delivery system, we always try to look at the world around us with the lenses of our histories and cultures and experiences. So largely we do not look at a scientific temperament at every process. We look at as per our intuition, we look at as per the logic which fits into the facts, we look at the courtroom testimony and the kind of a proof. The scientific degree of the proof has never been so much into vogue in the discussions, in the consideration. So this is how the traditional notion of justice delivery system is different than the forensic justice.
Yes. Ma'am, you are one of the leading legal experts in India who engages in training law enforcement agencies on aspects of forensic justice, and you have also been instrumental in incorporation of forensic justice in drafting of the new criminal laws. So, in your opinion, is the absence of a properly trained law enforcement system, which includes police, judiciary and lawyers, does forensic ultimately become an aid or an obstruction?
Oh, forensic can always be a great aid, and it can never be obstructions. I assume that when you talk about, you're using this word obstruction, you mean to say the delayed process. Yes. At times, because there are certain examinations, there are certain tests which does not happen on the spur of moment within few minutes. There are certain tests, they may take 3 days, they may take 5 days. Then you need to look at the availability of the equipment, availability of this trained manpower, and then there are so many other factors which may cause little delay. But forensic examination of any aspects of a criminal trial would always be a great aid and boon. The only thing is that it could have the entire forensic examination infrastructure, including the human resources infrastructure, should be strengthened. And that's what as of now, India is gearing up to ensure that forensic science infrastructure in this country can further strengthen, and that is which is well evident from the new criminal laws.
Ma'am, you have made several notable contributions also to the field of legal research. You had in one of your academic writings mentioned that forensic justice calls for a thorough examination of past wrongs, utilizing forensic analysis tools to shed light on unresolved cases or re-evaluate convictions. So, ma'am, do you think that India needs a nationwide project like Project Innocence, which is present in the USA?
Well, look at the conviction rate in India. if you try to compare the conviction rate of India with the other developed countries, like Japan, China, which has 99% of the conviction rate, USA is almost 80 to 85%, Australia is almost 80%, and India has only 57%. So those who have a great conviction rate, and then maybe, the nationwide campaign of the innocent project or a wrongful prosecutions. But in India, despite of having a lot of crime number which is rising, but we have the low conviction rate, meaning thereby lot of people who might have been actually guilty are being exonerated. Yes. So I was very curious to understand, and I was just trying to study these aspects. We have a word which is being coined as a wrongful prosecution. Yes. Do we have some kind of a word or a phrase that we use as wrongful exoneration? We never say, yes, because those people are being acquitted or exonerated by want of appropriate piece of evidence. Yes. So, if you feel that we also need to have innocent project, yes, we may, but largely the major greater need could be for the country like India, wherein we have so much, we have seen that in the recent past, the crime against children and women are on surge. Right? If you look at this thing, and those very severest crimes against the women are rising. So those people who are engaged with the severest crime, they cannot be such kind of a criminal overnight. They might have committed some lower degree of crime in the past, and then they might have tempted. That's what one presumption, one study says. Somehow we could not convict those people in the past, and that's the reason that there is no deterrence. Yes. And that's the reason that they could dare to commit a crime like what we have seen in Kolkata case, yes, and other kind of cases we have seen. So in that context, I would like to say we may have the innocent project, but simultaneously the greater need is to look into those cases wherein by want of evidence they are being acquitted. Now in future, if we find some kind of a piece of evidence, yes, can we have a retrial to further investigate and further impart justice to the victims and giving justice to the society at large by having an appropriate searching of appropriate evidence in those cases, because we have a greater amount of acquittal and exoneration, yes, by want of evidence.
Yes. Ma'am, Honorable Mr. Justice Dipankar Datta recently voiced his concerns regarding how the objectives of the NALSA Act seem to have been lost. So, in your considered opinion, how can we look to improve the legal aid mechanism in India, especially through forensic science and forensic justice?
Well, when I talk about the NALSA scheme and all the kind of a pro bono welfare scheme that we have devised for the victims of this country, what I found is all these schemes requires a collective efforts.
Yes.
Collective efforts by the human beings who are involved in the process. So somewhere either there is some kind of a problem that lies with the collective efforts and the collective will, yes, or there could be some problems, some issues with the people who are involved, because it's not a mechanical thing. Pro bono, like what you people are doing, comes from within. No one asks you to do this. No one asks the students to do that. You are doing out of your own passion and commitment, and from your heart you are doing all these things. So those who are involved just to administer these things should also have a passion to do something. When there is a passion, when there is some desire from the heart, with the collective will, it can be done. Now, when it comes to the forensic things, into forensic examination and forensic angle to the entire NALSA scheme, yes, I would say if I give the example of the acid attack victim, yes, and if you look at the NALSA scheme, the maximum amount that the acid attack victim could get is 2 lakhs rupees. Now, if someone face is totally burned, and if you go for a plastic surgery, it never comes, the 2 lakhs compensation is not an adequate one. Yes. So there is some kind of a scientific examination of the harm that is being caused to the victim, and then linking that scientific examination with the economic loss, the other potential loss for the future contribution to the society. Likewise, some kind of a scientific formula can be devised and can be offered to the policy makers. So this is how the scientific examination and forensic science may play a vital role.
Ma'am, you've done your bachelor's in mathematics before you started with your LLB and career in law. So you have had a connection with data, logic and scientific temperament before your connection with law started. To a common man, forensic evidence seems to be the most scientific and logical way for a conviction. However, there is a belief that forensic evidence often leads to acquittal but not so often to convictions, as you had mentioned earlier. So, as one of the pioneers of forensic justice education in the country, what are your thoughts on this conception?
Well, there is one thing. Science has a universal notion. Science has a universal acceptability. So, science is a universal and global concept. Law has a local context. So, when we are trying to blend science with law, one thing is sure, that universality of science cannot be ruled out. But at the same point in time, the way in which we process the science, so when we talk about the forensic evidence and forensic examination, there are certain norms, there are certain global standards and procedures which we have to adopt. The end result is not important. The process is also equally important. What we call it in the matter, manner and method. All three things are equally important in any game to winning the show.
Yes.
So likewise, especially when we are using the forensic evidence in the criminal justice system, wherein the cardinal principles of criminal justice system is that the guilt must be proved beyond reasonable doubt. So even iota of suspicion is being raised in any process, in any manner or method that you have adopted to churn out the forensic evidence, then there can be acquittal. So what we have to work out when we trying to strengthen the forensic testing infrastructure, we are trying to ensure that the process, accreditation, assessment, the process could be strengthened, could be regulated, so there cannot be any kind of a suspicion in the entire method or manner or process. And then in that case, the forensic evidence will be well accepted by the court of law, and there cannot be acquittal, but there will be a conviction based upon the scientific proof.
Ma'am, in light of your frequent and extensive interactions with some of the brightest legal minds in the country, which include Supreme Court judges, High Court judges, leading lawyers, academicians and government officials, do you feel that there have been in the past some apprehensions, both personal and institutional, regarding forensic evidence? And is it now changing with the newer generation of officers, judges and lawyers?
I don't think so, institutional or individual apprehension. The only thing is that forensic is a science, as I say, forensic science is not everyone's cup of tea.
Yes.
Right? So then, there anything new which I don't understand, I always look at with some kind of suspicion.
Yes.
But then the moment recently public prosecutors, judicial officers, everyone is getting trained in the understanding of the basic understanding of each piece of forensic evidence.
Yes.
So once as a judicial officer, once as a public prosecutors, if I have an idea that how forensic science actually works, how the DNA evidence can be relied upon, how the gunshot residues examination can be relied upon, if I am being made understood the basics of the forensic evidence, then I can accept it wholeheartedly. So what earlier also, neither institutionally nor individually some kind of an apprehension, there is not much awareness. Now we are trying to generate the larger amount of campaign to make people aware to all the stakeholders, so that we can use the forensic evidence for the greater public good.
Ma'am, now moving a little away from the technicalities, if you could tell us what was your first interaction with forensics, and how did you come up with the idea of forensic justice, or what attracted you to this term, with this exercises?
Well, as I said, I was a science student. Of course, I had major mathematics and subsidiary chemistry. So science, everything looking at with scientific temperament and systematic process is something which I am being in tune from the earlier days. So before 10-12 years, when we were used to offer a honors elective in the criminal law, we used to offer a course on forensic science and law, and that before 12 years or so I came across this area, and I found it very fascinating. And then when I learned more about it, I thought, how beautiful idea is wherein science is supporting the justice.
Yes.
And then this is how I was trying to connect with my field. I'm a science, and now I was a science student, and now then I pursued law.
Yes.
So combination of the science and law is going greater, is well for the greater good. And then when I got an opportunity to set up a school of law under the aegis of NFSU, and we were discussing what should be the nomenclature of the school, and then I found that justice system which is based on the scientific temperament and scientific processes and scientific way of thinking.
Yes.
Scientific way of thinking is also very, when I'm taking a decisions, my entire thought process revolve around the scientific way, keeping myself away from all kind of biases, looking purely objectively. So how do we develop this kind of a field which is a need of the hour? And this is how we discussed with Honorable Vice Chancellor sir, and he also suggested, and then finally we have come up with this name of the school as School of Law, Forensic Justice and Policy Studies, because we require a lot of policy interventions and policy formulations when we really would like to use science in support of law. And that's the reason that we really would wanting to have a school which is holistic, which is all inclusive of promoting forensic justice.
Ma'am, as an educator with vast experience, not just with Indian students but also with international students, what is your message about the importance of pro bono work, and why every law student should engage in providing legal aid and pro bono assistance?
Well, we are doing this thing on a day before our great Ratan Tata died. We all are mourning for that. And for the last 2 days, we have seen all social media and all the newspaper, TVs, the kind of a philanthropic attitude with which he has worked, and how he built an empire for contributing greater good to the public at large. So likewise, look at the example of Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, any great people you come across. So what I was really thinking that for any individual, who are we? We are the gift of the God. We exist here because we have been sent by angel to do something better. We are not here to earn degree, to mint money, to spend our luxury life in a lavish car and lavish bungalow. And that is what, that maybe it's a very minuscule desire of a human being. But our larger goal is when we do something for the others, the kind of a happiness, the kind of a sense of satisfaction that we get, which is matchless. So I feel that as a law student, or a lawyer, it is our first and primary not only duty, there should be an inner desire of everyone to do justice. To help people, to promote the kind of awareness to the general masses about law is an instrument of social change. And how do we, because if anyone who can do better in this society, the first hope we can keep is for the lawyers. Look at the Indian freedom struggle. All lawyers were involved into this thing.
Yes.
But not for the lawyers, we could not have seen this freedom for India. So I feel that is an innate quality. You are a lawyer, you would do pro bono. You are a lawyer not just to mint money. If you're a lawyer, naturally you will think for others. Because for what you are, your first job is to impart justice. Justice to whom? Justice to people. When you are imparting justice, you're helping people to get justice. That itself shows that you have some concerns for the people at your heart. So pro bono things comes very naturally for all those lawyers or the law students who are there with a passion, who are just there just because of the parents' force or just because some kind of friendship advice. Then it may not come naturally. Who have joined this profession out of their own concern and out of their own will, they would definitely come naturally. The pro bono, that pro bono attitude would come naturally to their heart.
I would like to thank you, ma'am, for your valuable time and for discussions on not only a very new and emerging facet of law, but also on the importance of pro bono work and legal aid and how forensic justice is playing a very crucial role in assisting justice delivery. We are very thankful to you, ma'am. And to all our viewers and listeners, thank you and stay tuned to the Legit podcast. Thank you.